Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to our review of the Eufy E28 Robot Vacuum Mop Combo. Eufy, one of the oldest robot vacuum manufacturers, has been trying a lot of new things lately with their robot vacuums. Whether it's a robot vacuum with a cordless vacuum base as its motor, as with the E20, or in the case of the E28, a robot vacuum that also doubles as a carpet spot cleaning machine. We bought an E28 for ourselves and have been putting the robot vacuum and the spot cleaner through various tests over the past few weeks and found that it had some really bright spots and some possible deal breakers. And in this video, I'll go over the pros and cons of the Eufy E28 and in the end reveal if it ended up making the Vacuum Wars Top 20 Robot Vacuum list on our website, which we keep updated weekly. So links in the description, and let's get started. Starting off with the basics, the Eufy E28 is a robot vacuum mop combo, meaning that in addition to being able to vacuum hard floors and carpets, it can also mop hard floors with its single spinning mop roller. It's positioned pretty high up in the Eufy lineup, just below the flagship Eufy S1, and it has many of the same features as the S1, but is selling for about $300 less on average. As I mentioned, the E28 also has the novel feature of being able to convert to a handheld spot cleaner for cleaning stains off of upholstery or carpets, something that a pet owner might be able to make good use of, and I guess I'll start off by talking about that as its first pro. So after unplugging it from the wall, the same module that houses the clean and dirty water tanks for the robot vacuum can be lifted off the base. It has a hose and a nozzle with a brush and trigger, where just like a regular spot cleaner, you depress the trigger to spray the water solution mix, and then you sort of vacuum back and forth to agitate the stain and suck up all the excess water. As a person with two cats who like to vomit for no apparent reason at least a couple times a week, I can see the benefit in a feature like this. For me, spot cleaners have been a lot of trouble in the past. They need to be dragged out of the closet and then filled with water and then cleaned up afterwards, and I would rather just clean up the vomit the old-fashioned way most of the time. But if I already had a spot cleaner in the room that was prepped with water and solution in it already, plus when I'm done I can run the self-cleaning cycle by pressing the self-clean button on the hose, which is really pretty useful by the way, and I wish other spot cleaners made this so easy, and then I can either empty the dirty water tank right then or wait until I empty it when the robot vacuum needs it emptied, since it's the same dirty water tank. So this makes me much more likely to use a spot cleaner because it's always on standby. We did test the spot cleaner's suction power, and while it was higher than the best-selling Bissell Little Green, its suction was lower than the average amount, though it did good with picking up our dried-on coffee and dried-on grape juice stains, which I pre-treated first, as well as the wet stain test. So at least for some people, I think this feature could be really useful, though I will have something else to say about it in the cons section later on. Another pro was that it was really good at its main job of vacuuming. It was good at picking up debris from the surfaces of hard floors and carpets in our tests, picking up everything from fine to extra large debris with no issues. It also has an automatically extending front side brush, which really helps with its corner coverage. It was also very good at picking up deeply embedded debris in our carpet deep clean test, getting an 85%, which is way above the average of 75%, and that's even a top 8 score out of well over 150 robot vacuums tested in this way. Another big pro was obstacle avoidance. The Eufy E28 has several sensors in the front of the robot, including a camera to help it recognize and avoid household objects. And the E28 was one of the best we've ever seen at this. Eufy in general has been a leader with obstacle avoidance, but the E28 got 23 out of 24 points in the various tests that we did. It's still not perfect by any means, but it's getting close. Another pro with the E28 was its mopping ability. It uses a roller-style mop system, which has at least one advantage over the more common dual spinning pads, namely the ability to mop up wet spills. Because its roller-style mop can process wet liquid with its squeegee, which it deposits in its onboard dirty water tank, where standard robot vacuum mops don't have a dirty water tank and are mostly just good for dried-on stains or very light amounts of liquid. Its mop pad does automatically lift lift up 10.5 millimeters when the robot detects carpets in order to keep carpets dry, though it can also be told in the app to simply avoid carpets or vacuum carpets first to accomplish the same basic thing. In our dried-on mopping stain test, it did really good, getting a well above average score of 127, though it did leave behind a bit more water than average at 1.3 grams, and we found that it didn't really matter if you had its water setting on low or high in the app, it was about the same amount of water left behind either way. So I think the E28 would be more prone to leaving streaks on floors than some of the other roller-style mops, which tend to use less water than others, but its incredible stain removal score was enough to give the E28 an overall above-average mop score. Another pro was its auto-empty bin and self-washing station, so when the robot returns to the bin to charge, it will automatically empty the robot's dust bin into a disposable bag in the base, wash its mop roller with cold water, empty the dirty water tank, refill the onboard clean water tank with a water detergent mix, and dry the mop roller with hot air. Almost all the things that you would expect from a top-of-the-line multifunctional dock, with the possible exception of hot water washing. It was also above average at navigation and coverage. It uses a top-mounted LiDAR to map and navigate around, which I think is much more accurate than internal LiDAR systems, which have become so popular this year, and in our tests it was above average with both navigation efficiency and coverage. The final pro I'll mention is its app. The app is easy to set up, it's user-friendly, it has many of the top-of-the-line features that I think are really useful, things like virtual barriers, lots of customization options, including bin behavior options, obstacle avoidance sensitivity, it has multi-level maps, and a lot more. The app is also pretty highly rated on both Apple and iOS. Before I move on to the negative stuff though, I want to hit some just neutral stuff. For example, in our 2.5-inch flattened pet hair pickup test on carpet, it picked up only the average amount. Another neutral thing was its battery life. In the various battery tests that we did, it was a little below average in terms of battery efficiency. Though it did have a fairly big battery, and it was efficient in terms of its navigation as we saw earlier, so its estimated square feet per charge number ended up being a little above average at 1207, so I'll call that neutral. Moving on to the cons. Probably the biggest issue we saw was a hair clumping issue that we noticed in our hair tests. The Eufy E28 has a newly designed two-part brush, which is supposed to channel hair to the middle of the brush to prevent tangles, and it did seem to work well with this, as we didn't see hair tangled in the brush at any time during our tests. But with both the 2.5 and 7-inch hair tests, hair got sort of processed behind the brush and it created what we call hair cigars. Even after it returned to its bin to self-empty, these hair cigars were left in the brush housing, which counts against its score in the 7-inch hair test, and it got one of the worst scores on record as a result. We ran these tests multiple times with the same results, and I'm open to this being an issue with only the unit I bought because I did reach out on Reddit and checked reviews on Amazon and didn't see anyone else talking about it very much, especially with standard pet hair and normal situations, though I did see someone experiencing some problems with longer hair. Some other cons I have is that in our tests, its suction and airflow numbers weren't as high as I would have liked to see for a robot in this price range, and it has a really small onboard dust bin at only 300 milliliters. The other con I had was just a suspicion that if someone were to use the spot cleaner a lot, like every day to clean up nasty things, I could see that hose and other components really needing replacing after a while, and it would be important to be able to replace it because the longevity of that spot cleaning machine is now more or less tied to the longevity of the much more expensive robot vacuum, if that makes sense. I do see that they sell replacement brushes, so that's something. So after adding up all these scores, the Eufy E28 did end up making the Vacuum Wars Top 20 Robot Vacuum list. It's currently sitting at 15th place as of the time of writing this. The bottom line is that it is a great robot vacuum and a decent mop. The obstacle avoidance is incredibly good, and it has impressive bin features, including its innovative spot cleaner. But it could leave streaks, and that hair cigar issue could be a problem if you have longer hair. Links in the description, and be sure to subscribe to Vacuum Wars before you leave. Thanks for watching. All of the links in the description are updated regularly to reflect our current favorite vacuums in multiple categories. You'll also find links to the Vacuum Wars website in the description, where we have more detailed lists of our favorite products, like our new Top 20 Robot Vacuums list, which is updated weekly.